Hello everyone, I'm Jay Bernard. I'm really honoured and pleased to have been invited to read for you all today. I'm in a very particular space at the moment, so I opted to do a recording rather than to be live. But nonetheless, I'm there, I'm present, and I too am trying to digest or understand kind of what's going on at the moment, and I really applaud everybody who's mobilised and who's doing all of that good work to cut the cycle of fuckery, basically, that just comes around and round and round again. So I'm going to read a few poems, starting off in Britain, and then we're going to pop over to America. I'm going to read a few letters, and then we'll come back to London. So I'm going to begin with a poem that comes from June Jordan's poem About My Rights. We basically did a performance of this at South Bank in 2020, and it was kind of amazing because we were talking about economics and how that's integral to culture and to politics as well. And that's kind of what June Jordan was doing at the time. So I'm just going to read the very first little section. Difficult question number 1. What is growth? And it's hard to believe, but still in 2020, people believe racism means being mean to someone with different coloured skin. A single action against a single person, a single quality of a single person or group of people. In 2020, it still doesn't mean a system, but is saturated. Just a man in the night, the boss, the landlord, bad apples in the palm of an otherwise good child. The terror of white children in large groups. Just kids. Just a joke. They didn't even notice you were there, but how can it be when they don't see race, just people? But I see race. I see what children become. And that is the problem in 2020. People think people are just people, ideas just ideas in people's heads, a mechanism by which, a means by which, the basis upon which society reproduces itself. And I say in my heart, yes, just a look. Yes, just a bad apple. Why are you scared of apples and children? A few years ago, I read George Jackson's collection of prison letters, Sold Our Brother. And I was moved to write a monologue based on that, and mainly I really wanted to use and to continually speak these lines from Soul That Brother, so I've entwined them in text as well. But of course, it's one George to another, George Jackson, George Floyd, at best. I see my old neighbourhood in the tattoos of other men. The black lines of dancing girls, the gothic script of ex-lovers, the hearts and the roses remind me of the bare corner between the city and the hood where I grew up. Where you could take a chance at the hot dog stand, steal 2, one for now and one for later when your old man cleared the pot and burped in the face of your hunger. He worked and I did not, so he ate and I did not. Instead I stood with my emptiness under a sky bisected by cables. Each section was a district of upturned apartment blocks, rubble haunted by families, doorways that were ex-speakeasies. I have stood with my emptiness and watched the sunset plunge the streets into sheets of battered gold. The walls of the blocks shimmer like the palms of the whiner whose eyes look through me, but whose hands beckon me to come talk with him, sharing his dog breath, sharing the rich amber of his whiskey as he holds the bottle to his lips. And all down his arm are tattoos I can't make out, flat blotches on his skin that tell he was once like me, with a gaze flat as the apartment windows whose dirty glass has no interior. I watch the other men pumping iron, flexing their arms, scratching their biceps with squirrels using an office pen and a knife. They cover themselves in baby oil, write names in the shower, and after a fist fight, just to be ironic, they cry into the nook between mother and thug for life. I stand and smoke and read. I arrived here at 18 this summer, I'll be 23. Those bench presses are just like me. Pulled over for no one's sake for $70 I didn't take, but I took a breath, a stolen gulp in the 5 blocks that I roamed where I learned to read the traffic signs and how to speak American, and so by being born I was born a thief, a rat, a magnet for bullet holes. I was first shot at 15, a square target for the square peg for the square hole of the penitentiary. It was as natural as white boys went to university. And so I have not seen the night sky for 5 years, but I see parts of it in the eyes of new boys whose terrified stare catches the light. I see a speck of Illinois at night. I see the grit of hope that although they're black, the guards will go easy as they're young. That hope is like the headlight of a stranger's car that pauses at the corner, turns, and is gone. I was never there. I don't believe I was ever there. I was never there. I can't have been. I can't have jumped 10 feet from one block to the next or dodged the flashlight of the police. I can't have been. I was never there. Did I ever sip coke in the crisp night air as the streets cleared, waiting for the outlaws to appear? Did I ever walk among the people? Was I ever a part of facing the crowd, a body in the throng? I was a hustler, a player, and that was my part. Life is at best a nebulous shadow, a vague contingency, the merest of possibilities to begin with. Life was my mother's hand, and it became a fist that closed around me. Every day I wake up and this cell has gotten smaller, the ceiling's a little lower, the shadows in the hall shorten till I cannot stretch or stand. One day they will be so close that their grey lips will hiss direct into my ear, sharp teeth and cold spit, loud enough to hear, don't you know? Don't you know? I'll take you in, I'll take you down, I'll tear you up, I'll fuck you up. All that will be left is your outside. I'll take your inside, don't you know? Now you know. These prison walls will come in close, make you wonder if you're dead until you die, you ugly, ugly fucking ape. A country, a city, a street, a room, a bed, a side of the bed, a dream. A country in that dream of the city, a city in that dream of the city, a street in that dream of the city, a window where I hear the sounds of another life. And of course, George Jackson spent a long time in solitary confinement, which is a scandalous technique currently being used in UK prisons as well at the moment, and the implications for that and for people's further mental health is obviously atrocious. So that's another thing to kind of bear in mind, all of the ways that this current moment is being manipulated to further entrench power. I wanted to change tack though and read a little bit from this book, which is the love letters between Pat Parker and Audre Lorde, because they were both ill with cancer and they kept up a correspondence over the years, and they tackled a lot of the problems and the questions and the issues that we're kind of dealing with now, which is what is the relationship between one's illness, one's race, one's structural oppression, and so on. But Pat Parker in particular wrote such a beautiful letter to Audre that I'm only going to read extracts of. I really highly recommend you get this book, in which she describes both her suffering but also the kind of community outreach and the work that's kind of been going on around her as well. September 8th, 1988. Audre, love. This is not a piece of paper, but my arm extending across all the damn miles between us to hold you and hug you with all the strength we have had to gain from the pain. This is my hand reaching inside you to feel the hole that is there. Right now I feel betrayed by words. There is nothing I can say that says what I feel. September 9th, 1988. I was so glad to see the interview with Susan Lee Starr. I was feeling quite isolated and alone since bar conversation. A few women have approached me and damn near whispered that they were glad I did the poem, but for the most part it has been silence. As I read the book, it hit me again, what I have always known, that you are indeed a gutsy woman. Your speech at Medgar Evers was indeed so needed and courageous, and Apartheid USA was right on time. I have been bothered by what I call white folks' ability to only deal with one problem at a time. Actually, it's not so much dealing with one thing at a time as it is the ability to convince oneself that a particular problem has been adequately dealt with. I am so tired of hearing how better off black people in this country are. It blows my mind when the government comes out with a report showing that more and more blacks and Hispanics are falling below the poverty line, which is in itself a joke, and in the same breath proceeds to say that the report is good and the economy is up. Feelings. So difficult to write about what is being felt. I just completed the 9-week course at the Cancer Support and the Education Centre in Menlo Park. Thank you again, Audrey Lord. One of the things that becomes most apparent to me is how I smashed down feelings and even refused to write about them in my journal. I verbalised that I need a break, but I think in reality, I was trying to direct my way of dying. I did everything my cardiologist told me not to do. On some subconscious level, I decided that I would rather die of a heart attack than cancer. I think I'm past that now. I started the process all over again of trying to get the best that is in me out. But Lord, child, as you know, it is a pain. I hate the question marks that chemotherapy puts into my life. How will I feel after this treatment? Will I have the energy to do what I need to do? Oh, good news for a change. There was a benefit for me put on by this woman, Hanley. She's a booking agent for some of the performers in the area. She's got a whole ton of people to perform and local businesses to donate to an auction. And so we were able to raise the rest of the money for me to go to Menlo Park. The show was 8 hours long. Audrey, I have never seen anything like it. There were people there, Sharon, Isabel, who hadn't done reading for 8 years, and Willis Kim and Julie Grant, and musicians I have worked with, and some folks who were just being born when I started. There was food donated by local delis, and the preparation and the serving and the cocktail waitressing, staffing of the raffle booths, etc. was all done by the members of the 2 softball teams I play on. Enough about me. What about you? I was worried and hurt when you didn't answer my last letter, but given what's been going on in your life, it makes sense. So, how about a postcard when you can't write, just to let me know you're okay? I think about you often, and talk to you a lot. I love you. Take care. Love, Pat. I'm gonna end with just a personal piece. My granddad died during this pandemic. He was, part of that Windrush generation, and even though the circumstances in which he died were tragic and horrible, the funeral was absolutely gorgeous, an absolute revelation for me, just in terms of what's important, what life is about. So I've written this brand new poem that I'm going to share with you because I feel like it's the moment to share it. Both in memory of my granddad in particular, to mark this particular moment, but also to remember that when you sacrifice the elderly and the old, and the black and the Asian and the people who've done all of that grunt work for so many years, you're really sacrificing a precious generation of people, pioneers really, who came to this country and taught it a little bit about decency and civility. To go to my father's house and see his single room, his mini fridge, altar full of photos of us kids. He hasn't got much more than me. In the 80s and 90s, black families tried to leave the inner city behind and went to spots like Norbury, Thornton Heath, Purley, full of pride because their parents' journey to the motherland had finally borne fruit. 4 big bedrooms, a garden, white neighbours, and plans for the oldest one to go to private school. I grew up there in the suburbs and believed my parents would remain in the hall, the kitchen, living room, where 1,000 days were spent feeding us and putting on our shoes. I did not think my parents would part ways, and I would never be in a room with both of them again. I tried to run away, but something brought me back. This fragile root in England is all I have to my name. After Grandad was buried, my parents and me stood as 3 in the sunshine, and the photo shows the anguish that we were, but aren't, a family. Thank you very much, everyone. Thanks again for inviting me to do this reading.